Welcome to The Hypnotist, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. This podcast features powerful hypnosis, so do not listen while driving or operating machinery. This recording is not suitable for those with epilepsy or severe mental health issues. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
Hi, it's Adam here, and in this episode of The Hypnotist, you're going to be listening to an anger management hypnosis session that was actually created for a client that was most of the time a very calm, friendly, in control, joyful person. It's just every now and then, as a result of quite a intense, you could call it toxic, abusive, or cruel childhood, every now and then they would have almost a mini explosion of anger. So what you're going to hear in this hypnosis session is two key things. One is regressing to a time where they dealt with anger, not by getting angry, or let's say they dealt with injustice, not by getting angry, but with defiance or with almost humor, this kind of satire type of humor at the ludicrousness of the situation. The second is harnessing what they considered their mentors, people like Nelson Mandela and Albert Einstein, very profound thinkers, to create a committee of anger that actually, thinking back on when they got angry or what they could get angry about, introduces this idea of, does it make sense and are there other choices? And the thing with anger is that quite often at the point of anger, if you're triggered, it can lead to quite a destructive reaction. You know, there's almost a fit of rage or an intensity. People sometimes say that they see red and they're not really in control. But there's a huge amount of learning that could be done from that situation to rewire future similar situations. So this introduces this kind of multiple ego states to influence learning from the past anger, but also creating different choices, different ways of behaving in the future. And I think empathy and flexibility are two ways in which anger can be mitigated. If you feel like you have anger issues or you lose control and you think that hypnosis may help, there will be a link in the show notes where you can schedule a free 30-minute consultation call to explore working with me. For now, though, this session, albeit that it was created for someone else, may be helpful for you. So find a quiet, comfortable place where you won't be disturbed, relax, and enjoy this session. Take a deep breath in, and as you breathe in a resourceful, slow, relaxing breath. And as you exhale, just allow any feelings of stress, tension, anxiety, or even echoes of anger, and allow it to leave your body in your outward breath. Breathing in, breathing out, but each breath just decide to make it longer, slower, more deliberate, so your breaths enable you to breathe in deeper and exhale deeper. As you breathe in, just imagine breathing in glowing white light, and just decide that this represents healing and resourcefulness. So as you breathe in that glowing white light, allow your body to deploy it to whichever location or function has the most impact. And as you exhale, imagine a darker color leaving your body, and allow the darkness to represent anything that no longer serves you. So breathe in that bright white light, exhale the darkness as you feel your entire body feeling freer, lighter, and more relaxed. As you continue to breathe in and breathe out, as your physical body relaxes, your imagination awakens. And I want you to use the power of your imagination to go back to a memory. And I want you to imagine drifting back in time to a memory where you were treated unfairly, in an unjustified way, and just observe as that younger version of you had other options to anger. I want you to see that what would have caused someone else to cry, to be broken, created different emotional states in you. Perhaps defiance, inner strength and resolve. The most powerful swords came from the steel that was beaten the most. And I want you to see that younger version of you that had choices. And anger almost wasn't on the radar. Because in many ways, getting angry is losing a battle. I want you to see a version of you that, even though you were treated unfairly, dealing with stupid people or stupid processes, see yourself smiling at the lunacy of the situation, somehow becoming stronger, or at least feeling grateful that you're not bound by the confines that restrict and prohibit other people's choices. Be grateful for that growth mindset, the miracle of your choices. As you breathe in and breathe out, find a memory where you handled a situation that would cause other people to get angry in the most resourceful way possible for you. And when you find that memory, step into that younger version of you and become aware of your physiology, the speed of your breathing, the tone of your inner dialogue, the muscle tension around your neck, shoulders, and arms, and realize that anger is just a choice. And when you choose better, you feel better. I want you to move from that memory and observe a different time. I want you to observe a memory, perhaps even a recent memory, where you did get angry. You felt that you lost control. And I want you to imagine that you're seeing that version of you where you're able, just through your eyes as an observer, to see you, the situation, but also the energy and aura that you project And when you see yourself from that place of anger, irritation, or even rage, notice that this is not your normal energy. And I want you to imagine seeing the intensity of that aura, the colors of that aura, and see how it syncs up somehow to your facial expressions, tonality, the intensity of your words. But you're just the observer. Breathe in and breathe out. And I want you to imagine this is now a benchmark. You can always allow pre-existing neural pathways to take you to this place of anger. And maybe, every now and then, anger is the release valve to let go of pent-up pressure or stress. In the same way that those old Industrial Revolution engines, if they didn't release the pressure, they would have exploded. So just accept that every now and then, anger is natural, perhaps even useful. It's just not useful if you're releasing the pressure valve and there's no pressure to release. Some people like staying in anger because it gives them a sense of certainty. But realize that your sense of certainty comes from who you are and your beliefs in the world. And therefore, anger isn't required for certainty for you. As you breathe in and breathe out, I want you to imagine creating an internal committee that decides when it's best to become angry. I want you to visit a meeting room, even a boardroom within your mind. The room doesn't exist, it's just in your imagination. And I want you to imagine you are chairing a meeting with 4 influential people. And from this point forward, it then means you have yourself and 4 other people to decide unconsciously and intuitively when it's right to become angry. I want you to imagine on one of the seats around the table is Albert Einstein. Imagine him, perhaps with that frizzy grey hair, mischievous smile, and perhaps Einstein would say, "In the middle of difficulty lies opportunity." But just acknowledge that he is one on your committee of anger. And maybe, with his intelligence, there is a time and a place where it makes sense for you to be angry, in which case, Albert will unconsciously vote to open up the floodgates of anger. But if Einstein believes that anger is perhaps the least intelligent thing you can do, maybe he will refrain from voting for anger. And then imagine, right next to Albert Einstein is William Shakespeare. And just imagine that he also holds a vote as to whether unconscious anger is necessary. And maybe part of his viewpoint would be to imagine that all the world's a stage, and all the women and men are merely players. In which case, if it's all just a stage anyway, is anger required? When it's just another character that's making a cameo, in your own private hero's journey. As you breathe in and breathe out, imagine seeing Johann Wolfgang von Goethe there around the table. And just imagine that Goethe has an interesting perspective. And maybe he would say that magic is believing in yourself. And that if you could do that, you could make anything happen. Which means that if you can make anything happen, you can handle situations in a way that doesn't require anger. But knowledge perhaps is not enough. And maybe Goethe would encourage you to apply deep down what you know. That being willing to have an alternative to anger is not enough. Maybe he would encourage you to do. And then imagine one final person in your committee of anger. Imagine Nelson Mandela there at the table. He would also cast a vote on whether anger is the best course of action. And maybe he would perceive that anger is the opposite of freedom. There is an obligation. That anger perhaps gives you chains rather than frees them. And maybe true freedom for you is a future where you have the option, the choice to be angry, but never actually use it. That you could be free to cast off those chains of anger and to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others. As you breathe in and breathe out, I want you to imagine that recent time when you got angry. But I want you to imagine just before that state of anger, it was your job to try and convince those 4 people in your committee that anger is required. So do your best to convince them that anger is your best course of action in this circumstance, and try and win over the vote of Mandela, Goethe, Shakespeare, and Einstein. And perhaps if these bright minds agree with you that anger is your best recourse, then that's exactly what you should do. But as you listen, they might have different opinions as to how else you can handle the same situation, where you get to release the energy without the need for anger. As you imagine staring at that memory of you getting angry, and you hear the wisdom and the intuition, the insight and the guidance of your committee of anger, you realize that anger is just one of many different choices. And imagine changing that memory to how you could have been with the insight of these wise men. And notice the aura around you changes, perhaps to a distinctive color of blue. And if you can replace anger with empathy, kindness, and understanding, ask yourself the question whether that enhances or reduces the quality of your life. I want you to imagine that you have the ability to channel your imagination to envision peaceful solutions in times of anger. And recognize that inner strength exists within you to overcome challenges without succumbing to anger. That in moments of frustration, every challenge is an opportunity to grow. And not everyone is blessed with intelligence. So consider it an intellectual puzzle to navigate through anger with wisdom and composure. You start to see yourself as a master of your emotions, controlling your anger as an actor controls their performance, imagining indeed that life is your stage. You start to believe deep down in your ability to calm the storms of anger with the power of your limitless mind. As you breathe in and breathe out, know that you have a right to be angry. You have the ability to be angry. But whether or not you are angry or not is simply a choice. One item on a very big menu of your emotions. I want you to imagine shaking the hand of each of your wise mentors, the committee of your anger, and trusting their guidance unconsciously, rapidly, that if anger is necessary, it's because they deem it is worthwhile. And if they don't, you will explore rapidly in that powerful mind alternatives that enable you to tap into empathy, understanding, perspective, or even the silliness and satire, the farcical nature of some situations that cause anger in some and a wry smile in others. If your unconscious mind accepts that you can be angry but not need to be, let me know by nodding your head. Say goodbye to your wise committee. Leave that room. And as you leave, feel a wonderful feeling of lightness, positivity, joy and wonder, and feel that you are projecting that energy outwards, far and wide, that you have the ability to diffuse anger with a smile, a kind word, and a little perspective. Breathing in and breathing out, you return to the present. As you wiggle your fingers and wiggle your toes, connect fully in the present moment. As very soon I count from 1 to 10 to awaken you. You will awaken feeling positive, joyful, resourceful, fresh and full of energy, looking forward to navigating future triggers as a game where anger represents the worst possible choice to handle many situations. Starting to count to awaken you. 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake.
Thank you for listening to The Hypnotist with Adam Cox, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. To automatically receive the latest episodes, please subscribe. If you'd like to support the show, please share this episode with just one friend you think it could help. And if this episode helped you, please leave us a 5-star review.